It's time to talk about Dragon Ball FighterZ, which came out on the it came out on Friday. So this was the weekend of people getting their fisticuffs on with a lot of Dragon Ball carnage. And I've got a couple of fantastic guests in the show today. People that I've worked with numerous times over the years. Cheng and Denny Chiu are industry veterans who have worked at numerous video game publishers throughout their respective careers. Their latest project had them working together on marketing and communications for Bandai Namco Entertainment's blockbuster title, Dragon Ball FighterZ. Hello, gentlemen. It is good to see you both. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. How are you doing, Vic?
Doing awesome. Thanks for joining us. And I have to say congratulations, because this was a heavily hyped game coming out of E3 last year. Everybody was throwing down that this was going to be, if not the best fighting game of 2018, definitely in contention for one of those titles. And by every indication, I played it a little bit, and I'm loving it so far. But the reviews are coming in. How are you guys feeling right now?
Excited, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, just seeing the reception that we had leading into launch, like you were saying. I mean, reviews have been stellar.
Yep.
Fan reception has been awesome, to say the least. So we're definitely riding the Dragon Ball wave.
Yeah, totally. You can't say enough. I mean, it's been super successful for us. I mean, it's been a long time to kind of work on the project, at least, then to see it come out. It's just been a tremendous, success for us, for Bandai Namco.
I haven't watched the Dragon Ball show, so I don't count myself in as one of those super fans out there. But I will say that almost every single Dragon Ball game I've enjoyed. I've loved the crazy world and the characters and the Super Saiyans, and just is that how you say it? Saiyans or Super Saiyan? How do you say it?
Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan. The Super Saiyans. It's just fun every single time. And I learn little bits and pieces of the mythology when I play these games. But you guys have worked with Dragon Ball as a franchise for how many years now, as a company?
As a company,
Yeah.
I want to say 15, 20 years, probably?
I mean, definitely before we started working here, but for a long time. I mean, so decades.
I would almost, it's almost safe to say decades. Yeah.
Well, and there's been a ton of good games out there. The Xenoverse games were, a couple of your most recent titles out there, which were really fun and super cool. How do you keep things fresh when you've got a property that's in the public eye that for that long, and you've made so many games, and a lot of them have been good fighting games, but how do you keep it fresh, and how do you know that this is now the direction that you're going to take Dragon Ball to sort of appeal to everybody?
Well, I think there's always a challenge in working, with the Dragon Ball license. I mean, it's a totally beloved kind of franchise for people all around the world, globally. We have a huge amount of fans in Asia and Europe.
Latin America.
Latin America is a huge market for us. I mean, a lot of people grew up on the franchise. There's a lot of nostalgia around the franchise. In addition, with the airing of Dragon Ball Super that's currently airing presently, it's just been tremendous amount of interest. I mean, people from that are 40 plus years old, are interested in the game, interested in the franchise. People who are just getting into the franchise are into it as well. And in terms of your question about, like, hey, how do we keep it fresh every single time? I think that's just the beauty of the franchises, right? People want different types of games. I mean, last year we came out with Xenoverse 2, which was, taking more of an RPG kind of approach to it, 3D fighting, lots of customization options, lots of different things that people can check out. This time with Dragon Ball FighterZ, it's really kind of like that head-to-head 2D fighting experience, and we really took a really great fighting game developer, Arc System Works, and we married that together with Dragon Ball, the franchise, and what you get is Dragon Ball FighterZ. I mean, the kind of like the what we like to say, the ultimate 2D anime fighting experience.
And
I think Wilson touched on.
Go ahead, Denny.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think Wilson touched on some of the factors that make Dragon Ball such a successful franchise, in that it spans multi-generations of fans, right? So with that, I mean, first of all, Dragon Ball itself has run a very long time, so there's a huge amount of content. And then within that content, there are actually some questions and then some plot lines that weren't totally explored that we actually were able to kind of explore in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Like if you put different characters together, they have different kind of reactions to each other that fans have been kind of, I would say, looking for a resolution to.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fan service type of stuff in there. So if you're a fan of the franchise, there's definitely like little tidbits in there that if you watch the anime, you would be like, oh my god, I totally remember that.
Yeah.
That's something from my childhood. It's from the anime. If you put these characters together, you know, like different scenes would happen. That's straight from the anime.
And those are the kind of the fun things that we're able to do to keep like Dragon Ball and their games fresh, new, and always compelling.
Is this something, I mean, Bandai Namco's had a long-running relationship with the makers of and the owners of the Dragon Ball brand. Is this something that they understand is incredibly valuable for bringing new viewers to the work that they're creating? And do they kind of work with you guys in a real partnership and say, no, you guys can create a little lore in this direction? Or is it kind of, shepherded by them at every step of the way? How does that relationship work?
I'd say it's a combination of both. Obviously, they've got a great IP and they want us to stay true to their vision for their franchise.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like as you've seen with like the Dragon Ball Xenoverse series, for the first time ever, you can actually create your own avatar and have that avatar interact with the characters and the environments within the Dragon Ball world. So that was a huge thing for us in terms of being able to offer something totally new for players to experience, right? And then, with FighterZ, it's kind of the same close-knit relationship in that, they know their franchise the best. We know it really well because we've been working with them for so long. And then it's like, okay, now how do we get and work in that fan service? How do we get the game to really portray the action and all the dynamic kind of relationships and bouts that these guys fight within the anime and kind of put that into a game where people can experience.
Yeah, totally. And then in FighterZ specifically, in speaking about like, shaping the characters, I mean, there's a character in Dragon Ball FighterZ, Android 21. She was specifically created for Dragon Ball FighterZ from supervised by Akira Toriyama himself.
Right.
So it's definitely like, there's a new storyline that's in the game, a brand new character that was created specifically for the game. And, from what I've read online, people seem to really love her, playing as her and, being big fans of the character.
And,
so that's something new.
And she's unlocked until you play the supervillain story arc, right? And then you can unlock her?
Right. You can unlock her as you play through the game. So you finish through the story mode and that's how you lock her.
I'm loving the. I'm a big fan of Marvel vs. Capcom, and I'm loving the. There's a familiarity with the sort of out of control, flashy, fighting styles and the team-based mechanics and stuff. It's candy. It just looks beautiful, but it also looks, to my eyes, it looks probably it's the closest approximation to what the show actually looks like, and I guess that must have been a big target for you guys, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that makes Dragon Ball so magical are the crazy battles that, people witness in the anime. I mean, I remember when I was watching as a kid, there would be like episodes where it's a full episode devoted to Goku just charging up and getting ready, that anticipation. And then when the battle goes down, I mean, it's like all hell breaks loose, right? So we definitely want to bring that feeling and that power, literally that power within those battles to the game so that people can literally experience that for themselves.
Totally. I think Arc System Works, who created the title and developed it, I mean, they're huge fans of the series. So even if you look online, you just compare what was done in the anime and you look in the game, it's almost exactly the same. So that's how much detail and painstakingly recreated in the game. So I think people really gravitated towards that because they're not playing fast and loose with the material. I mean, they're staying like true to like the anime itself.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for working with a developer that are true fans within their core like soul themselves. Right. I mean, we kind of experienced the same thing with the Naruto Storm franchise and CyberConnect. Those guys are like true Naruto fans, and then Arc System Works, these guys are true Dragon Ball fans, and when you combine these factors, then that's when you have like video game magic.
Yeah.
And Arc System Works, they don't traditionally do licensed stuff that often, right? Like they focus a lot on what they do for the most part. Why were they chosen as the partner? Why are they the perfect partner for this type of game?
I mean, when we look at their pedigree and how they go about developing 2D fighting games, I think at the end of the day, they were really the perfect partner to bring to bear upon this franchise to deliver a great game. And I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves at this point. I mean, you know, they've really done a great job. And it's a matter of knowing that you're working with people that really know the franchise, and that builds even further trust between us as a publisher, them as a developer, and then our collective relationship with the licensor for Dragon Ball as well.
What's going on with fighting games? Why are they so awesome again? Like, it feels like every 2 months we've got another awesome, like, what's happening in the game development community? Everybody's just like, let's go, man. Let's get into some fighting.
It's funny. I mean, we've been around for a while in the industry, and it kind of goes cyclically, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, fighting games come back and they're like the hottest thing, and Evo blows up, and then for a little bit it kind of takes a lull a little bit, and everybody starts, you know, developing that next big fighting game, and then they all kind of come back together. It's kind of strange how it works, but I think we're definitely, you know, approaching a high right now, and it's great to have a game that's part of that high.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at, you know, last year we released Tekken 7, and that was a huge hit for us as well.
Super fun.
Huge support with the fighting game community, and they're really behind the game. I mean, it's a good time to be a fighting game right now.
And to tell you the truth, I mean, with esports, you know, kind of growing and maturing at this point, I think, you know, it's great timing to have a lot of awesome fighting games kind of usher that community tournament space and make it really a serious thing for people to look forward to either participating in or watching. And beyond that, I mean, with that kind of, you know, like the esports energy, that also, I think, don't quote me on this now, but I think that lull that we used to feel with fighting games we might not experience that anymore, because the energy of the tournament scene is just going to keep these games going, and then, you know, we release the next game. Like this year, we're working on Soul Calibur 6.
Yep.
So we've got another one coming down the line. So I think that's how it's going to roll from now on, as long as we have good energy within the fighting game community and esports.
It also feels like the technology is so powerful and limitless that a lot of the kinds of, you know, the visual flourishes and the stuff that developers would reach for in the past is attainable, and the stuff, you just can't believe what you're looking at. You know, it's so gorgeous. I think
you're absolutely right about that. I mean, the power of today's consoles and PCs, it's amazing, and it just widens the, I would say, kind of like the playground for developers to really design great games and build great games for our fans.
That's awesome. You guys got some heat, speaking of esports, for Dragon Ball FighterZ from Evo. Is this part of the plan for the game now? Is it to become like a competitive game that we're going to start to see at esports competitions?
We haven't made any announcements.
You know, we're on a show, right? If you'd like to make an announcement, we got a show right here for you.
We just launched the game, so we're kind of evaluating where we go from here.
Yeah, we're monitoring like reception and how the game's going, and you know, we know that Evo's, you know, months away, so we're going to pay close attention to what's going on out there, and then we'll see if we have anything to announce down the line.
I guess it must be a little weird, too, because you have Tekken and you have Soul Calibur and you have Dragon Ball FighterZ and you've got Naruto games that are sort of in the pipeline, I'm sure. And do you have internal competition with all of these fighting candidates out there? Or,
you know, I mean, internally, it's not really competition. It's almost more of a way of finding balance. And each game does present like a different experience, even though they're all fighting games.
Different crowd.
They do present a different experience, and they appeal to a different crowd. So we never run into an instance where there's really competition. It's more of a balancing act, to tell you the truth.
Do you feel like
some people are of different franchises, and personally, they might like the gameplay of Soul Calibur more than another one.
Yeah.
Some people like the gameplay. So it's really, you know, we're kind of giving people a choice in the different fighting games that are out there. So, you know, I think it's up to the individuals.
Yeah, I think we see it more like we've got something for everybody.
Right.
That's awesome. Do you feel like Dragon Ball FighterZ is kind of positioning itself to cross over into like a new audience, though? I mean, you look at that game and it's irrefutably, you don't have to be a fan to really appreciate this thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's one of the challenges as a marketing guy, right? It's like, hey, are we only selling this game to the Dragon Ball fan? But as a marketing guy, no, you want to sell the game to like a broader audience.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a very pretty game, but it's also a very deep game as well. So it's not like you just mash a bunch of buttons and then you win. I mean, like I went online this weekend and I just got my butt kicked, right? I mean, there are people who know how to play this game, and I'm like, I can't even get a hit in. And I'm like, wait, but I work on this game. One of those things in which, yeah, there are the super dedicated FGC guys who like know all the combos and have figured out all the different techniques. But then, we also want to make it accessible for people who are fans, but want to get into the game, but may not be the best online. But they can have the great story mode and kind of like the more casual experience.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the great things about the game, right? Like the amazing visuals that just draw you in. I mean, even if you don't know a thing about Dragon Ball, you'll at least be able to appreciate the crazy visuals and the fighting dynamics of the game itself as a baseline kind of point of enjoyment. So there's that. And then you add to that, if you get good enough and you take your skills online, and then you're challenged online with other players, that kind of gives you a different dynamic of, man, all right, I just got my butt kicked, but then I'm going to come back and be better at this. And then you just kind of challenge yourself and build that momentum that way. So there's always something to be enjoyed within the game experience, even if you're not like a Dragon Ball fan. We don't want it to just appeal to Dragon Ball guys. We want it to appeal to gamers in general.
Awesome. Well, I think you've hit your mark with that. Let's talk a little bit about the depth in the game. Obviously, you've got an arcade mode in there. It's team-based, so you collect a team of 3. I haven't dove deep enough that I can sort of speak to every single facet of this, but I'm curious, can you just play 1 versus 1 if you want to?
No, the game is meant to be 3 versus 3. So essentially, your team is a group of 3 versus another group of 3. So you can't do 1 versus 1.
Okay.
So from a balancing standpoint and how they create the game, it has to be kind of like a 3 versus 3 team mechanic. There's a story mode in the game. There's training. There's online, of course. There's ranked and casual matches. There's a lot of different kind of elements that people can play so they can kind of explore the game in all these different ways.
Yeah, definitely a lot of different facets for people to enjoy. I mean, I think the 3 versus 3 dynamic really brings in a little bit more drama as well, because there's nothing like, all right, I'm getting beat down as Goku, but now I'm going to call in Cell, and I'm going to have another go at it, or I'm balancing which players or which characters I'm using throughout the match, so that not one character is getting drained and I'm bringing another guy in. I'm just like, balancing my guys out. Or it's like, depending on the opponent, I'm going to bring in a different character to fight that particular opponent's character, because I know I've got an advantage, or I feel like I am stronger against that character as well. So it brings a little bit more like strategy and I would say team management factors into the game.
Yeah, totally. It's all about the, it's kind of matchups, right? You're trying to see like, okay, well, this character is slower but more powerful. This one's really fast but not as powerful. So then you sort of want to balance that out. And I think that's the recipe for a great fighting game and experience, is that you want to make sure the game is balanced, so that no matter which character you use, there's counters and different things that you can do with the different characters, so that players and fans of a particular character can feel like they're successful. There can't be one character that's ultra powerful and then essentially kind of ruins the game.
Yeah. And so having a team kind of balances all that out. I know I've got players and fans that are watching the stream right now. If you've got a question for Denny and Wilson, let us know in the chat, and Blake is monitoring that, and he'll get it to us. But let's talk a little bit about the story mode, because I think Injustice 2 kind of threw down a gauntlet, no pun intended, last year with their really cool story mode. But this was a game developer working with comic people, kind of creating their alternate universe kind of way into their storytelling. And I'm curious, when you're working with story makers that actually build these televised episodes, is that like a new challenge for them? They say, well, we got to have the best story mode that's ever been in a video game. Like, is that somewhere that we're going to see story become a much more prominent and rewarding element of fighting games going forward?
Well, I think it's always it's always challenging, right? With a fighting game and a story mode. I mean, I think what we have in Fighters is really awesome. Just given that the story mode's like broken up into 3 different arcs.
Yep.
It's a completely kind of new story that kind of stands on its own, but taking all the different characters from the Dragon Ball series, and I think as creators, I'm sure that taking all that into account, you want to make sure that there's a great story, but also like want to kind of give like fans a little bit of fan service of like, hey, acknowledging what has gone on before.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just a really good balancing act that you need to do as storytellers.
Yeah, I think opportunities like this actually excite the developers because they're not stuck on myth or storylines that people have known for ages and ages. Now we're getting into something where they can actually create something new for people to experience and kind of give their own take on the franchise. Of course, working with, once again, the licensors to make sure everything's kosher,
Right.
but it does give them a little bit more leeway to deliver a little bit more in terms of storyline or answer certain kind of story arc issues or mysteries from the actual anime or manga, and that's what makes Fighters also really fun because people discover these things as they're playing through the game, and they're just like, oh man, I was waiting for resolution on that, or oh my god, this is what's happening there, and I think that's part of the thing that's really captured people for Dragon Ball FighterZ when they're playing through, and it's not just the great battles, but now if you're a true fan, you're just like, oh man, I've been waiting for that to be resolved so long. So
that's awesome. Is there crossover the other way? You mentioned that Android 21 is new and created for the game, but is there fiction that has been crafted for the game which will now be reinterpreted back into either the manga or the anime? Does it work like that with you guys?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I really don't know kind of that aspect of it. I mean, that's definitely something that the developers can take a look at, and also with the licensor. So, I think it's always a possibility, but
I think this is that great opportunity for like the Dragon Ball community and the gaming community to really speak up on social media and be like, oh my god, we love Android 21. When is she going to appear in the next episode of Dragon Ball Super or whatever, and then everybody's paying attention these days, right? So it's not like back in the day where you put out a game and it kind of goes into this black hole and you never hear back from your fans and consumers. Now it's like
or a TV show, Denny. It's now we do this stuff live, right? Like,
so now there's this dialogue, and we're always open to hearing about what people think about our characters or the new characters, and seeing where they can go next.
So let's break down the characters in the game. How many do you get when you plunk your dough down and you bring Dragon Ball FighterZ home?
Yeah, so total number of characters 24 in Dragon Ball FighterZ, and then we also we are also selling a Fighters Pass, which adds 8 additional characters coming down the line.
And did you want to announce any of those characters at all, Wilson?
We will announce those characters just this particular minute. Stay tuned.
That's okay. We'll wait. How are you guys deciding, where you go with are they already decided, or are you sort of reaching out to the community and sort of asking for their favorite choices?
It's always hard because within Dragon Ball, there's so many characters, right? And everybody has different favorites and things like that. So it's difficult to kind of like put into buckets of like, oh, well, who should we put in? I mean, some of the developers have their favorites. The licensor has their favorites. Fans have their favorites. So
I mean, even throughout our campaign leading up to launch, like as we announced characters in the roster, I mean, we started getting messages from fans saying, "Oh, is this character going to be in there?" Or why not this character? Or back and forth. So there's already like a lot of conversation out there amongst the fans and kind of like the Dragon Ball universe of fans out there. So at the end of the day, like I said, we love that kind of interaction, and we pay attention and see, where can we take this? Obviously final decisions are still being made, and we'll announce characters when we have everything locked. But I think developing games these days, that's the fun part where, we can kind of take a peek at the world of fans and see what they're saying and thinking and kind of help us make certain decisions.
That is awesome. Now, can you play the game with any legacy fighting sticks, or do you have to buy like I've got it on the PlayStation 4, but I've got a ton of PS3 sticks, and some games allow you to kind of tweak settings so you can use some of the older stuff, or do you have to have one of the latest PlayStation 4 sticks?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the game definitely works with fighting sticks, but particular brands and models and legacy sticks, that's
when it gets a little nebulous.
Yeah, because
that's just a personal one for me, because I want to start hooking up my fighting sticks again, and I've got I've been doing this a while, so I've got a collection of these things. I don't want to start buying new ones. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. It's definitely a question that we do get. I mean, it definitely works with sticks, but it's sort of like which ones work or don't work, and ultimately, I don't know if we can support every single one that's out there.
Yeah, that's kind of like that double-edged area where we want to support sticks and we know which ones work currently. Yeah. But then, because like you were saying, Vic, like if you've been around long enough, you've probably got 5, 6, 7. Some guys have even more sticks at home. And it's like, for us to test everything would be very difficult. So once again, this is a great opportunity for us to enlist the help of the community and be like, hey, if you've got a stick out there, you try it on our game and see if it works, and let us know, if it backdates that far.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. I've got a great question here, and it was one I was going to ask, but I'm giving it to Brandon T-Mac19. You got it on the PC, you got it on the PlayStation 4, you got it on the Xbox One. Is there a Switch version percolating? Is there something coming down the pipe?
We're always looking for opportunities for, our games to go on different platforms. I mean, at the onset of development for Dragon Ball FighterZ, we obviously slated the game to go on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Now that the game is out and we're observing kind of like fan reaction, you never know. We love the Switch. I would say to Brandon, if you're looking for a Dragon Ball experience for Switch, we do have Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 that's already out for the Nintendo Switch right now.
Very cool. Good answer, Denny. Very nice. You have these huge universes at your, you can reach into them, right, with Naruto and with Tekken. Is there any sort of idea of ever doing a crossover where we're fighting with some of these characters against some of these characters? Is that something that you guys, I mean, we see Capcom do that time and time again. We saw that collaboration that you guys did with Tekken and Street Fighter.
It's funny you ask that, because about, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we actually put out a game called J-Stars.
Yep.
And that was a melding of a ton of different anime characters from, like the Dragon Ball characters, Naruto, One Piece, to, I believe, like Assassination Classroom, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was part of that.
Awesome.
So we made a game a couple of years back that actually melded all of these different manga and anime characters together. And the challenge with that was, at the time, some of those franchises that we included in that game, they didn't really fight in their kind of source material. So we actually had to work with the licensors to come up with appropriate fighting moves for certain characters that would make sense in the game. So that was a huge challenge. But I mean, fan reaction to that was really good as well. It was really a game that people were kind of clamoring for, because it's like, oh, what happens if you put Goku against Naruto? These were questions that people always had, and we kind of answered them with that game. So it's out there. So if you're looking for it, for that experience, we did it a couple of years back.
That is awesome. So this has been a success for you guys already. You know that it's a successful thing. Is this something where you're going to be, possibly looking to tap on Arc System's shoulders again and collaborate on something new down the road?
You never know. I mean, definitely, having such a great, successful launch and a game that really, you can see the quality, you can see the skills of the dev team in the product. I think it really paves the way for us to keep that door open, obviously. And I think, fans out there are probably going to be looking forward to us bringing something else out of this partnership between Bandai Namco and Arc System Works. So, you know, it's definitely a door we're going to keep open.
You guys have an active connection through different you know, conventions that you go to and Comic-Con and stuff like that, where you show off your games all the time. I'm wondering if you, either of you or both of you, have like a personal moment or a story of connecting with a fan that just flipped out when they saw Dragon Ball FighterZ in action.
I would say our first showing at E3 was quite an experience because, I mean, you know, we kicked off E3 with the announcement of the game at the Microsoft press conference, and I mean, we internally, before we made the announcement, we were like, this game may have some legs. And seeing the reaction at the Microsoft conference, we were just like, oh man, this is going to be good. This is going to be a good E3 for us. And then actually seeing the game in action at our booth at E3 and the line around the booth, that to me as a collective experience was just mind-blowing, because I mean we've worked on some great games here at Bandai Namco, but to see a Dragon Ball game garner that reception from fans and media alike at E3, to me was just like the quintessential memory I have of working on this campaign.
Yeah, totally. And then, you know, I think after E3, we brought it to Anime Expo, and to actually see consumers really get their hands on it. And I was like, man, this line is ridiculous, and people are like having a blast playing it. And I was like, wow, like I think we have something special here in terms of like just, you know, people loving the game. When they saw it there, they were just like, oh my God, I get to play it, you know?
Yeah, it's just like, you know, we love seeing people hooting and hollering at the game stations at these shows, and we ended up like running pseudo mini tournaments with people that were just waiting in line, and people just got so into it. And that's like the intangible magic of working on games and seeing the enthusiasm of fans when we're at these events.
It's really, really incredible. Well, again, congratulations, you guys, and please give my regards to all the developers in Japan. Incredible stuff. Like you said, Denny, this is just the beginning too, right? A game launches, and then it's about sort of building community and tweaking and adding new content and taking it around, and potentially it'll be in sort of a competitive zone at some point down the future. Great stuff. I'm very happy for you guys. Congratulations, you two.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
And thank you for joining us.